Thank you all for taking the time to watch this presentation and for signing up as a World Language Learners Tutor. This program would not be possible without all of you, so your participation is greatly appreciated. This presentation will also be available to you all later through our website. This is a brief summary of our agenda. First, we'll be discussing who we are, what GUTS does as an organization, and what tutoring with WLL specifically entails. We will also cover cultural awareness and inclusion practices to ensure that your group feels comfortable with one another. After that, we'll move on to GUTS policies and we'll finish up with review and time for questions. So first, let's start with who we are as an organization. GUTS, or Greater University Tutoring Services, is a student org that began in 1974 and works to provide students with free tutoring, volunteer and peer tutoring opportunities, and leadership opportunities through student staff. Our team, which is comprised of both students and professional full-time staff members, is divided into academic, language, and study support services. World Language Learners falls under the language category. If you're interested in any other tutoring opportunities with GUTS, make sure to check out our website at guts.wisc.edu. This is the WLL coordinating team for spring 2024. My name is Elsa, and I use the pronouns she, her, hers. I'm currently a senior studying international studies and Spanish, and this is my second semester as a WLL coordinator. The other coordinator's name is Cindy, and she also uses the pronouns she, her, hers. She's currently a junior studying political science and legal studies, and this is also her second semester as a WLL coordinator. We both oversee matching and running the World Language Learners email, so feel free to reach out if you ever have any questions or concerns. If you have any questions or concerns, here's how you can contact us. We prefer you email us at the WLL email address since we check this during our office hours, but you can also email us separately our individual WISC accounts. If you want to talk to someone at GUTS other than us, you can contact our supervisor, Savannah. She would be willing to help with anything you need, especially if you have any issues regarding discrimination or harassment. You can also talk to us or other GUTS staff members in person at our office at 333 East Campus Mall in the Student Activity Center. Our office is in room 3111, down the hallway off the left of the help desk. If you are interested in visiting the GUTS office or are looking for a prompt answer to your email, here is when we will be in the office working. This information can also be found in a tutor handbook, so feel free to refer back to it whenever you need to. If you want to meet with us but our office hours don't work with your schedule, feel free to contact us to set up a virtual appointment. You are also welcome to visit the GUTS office whenever you're free to ask your questions to the other staff members. Now we'll move on to tutoring with World Language Learners. In order to ensure that your groups are meeting, we ask that you fill out a weekly report. To be clear, we only ask you to fill out the form if you would like a recommendation or confirmation of your hours. If you're not looking for either of those, then there is virtually no need for you to fill out the weekly report. However, if there is an issue or your tutee is not showing up, we expect you to let us know immediately. Feel free to bookmark this form and use the last 5 minutes of your tutoring session to fill out the document. This contract covers information like when you plan on meeting with your group, what the best forms of communication are, and includes other pieces of information that will be helpful for the rest of the semester. It also goes over GUTS policy, so if you have any questions or concerns, you can refer to the contract. This contract will be sent out in your group matching email, but it will also be on the WLL website. Make sure to return this to us within 2 weeks of your first meeting. We use this document as a way to double check that groups have met and understand GUTS policies and expectations. Now, as we move on to tutoring specifically, it's important to recognize this program involves an exchange. Language tutoring should be a give and take relationship with both tutors and tutees getting something out of the experience. Tutors can gain leadership and teaching skills, build relationship at UW, and gain other skills as well. Both tutors and tutees should be fully engaged in this exchange, bring their time and effort. As you start meeting with groups and begin tutoring, we ask that you ask yourself why you became a tutor to reflect on what you're expecting to gain from this program. Although all members of World Language Learners are engaged in tutoring, all their sessions look differently regarding how they are run. Overall, all sessions should be focused on conversation practice. If tutees want to go over specific topics from their language studies or want additional practice with other forms of language production like reading, writing, or listening, you aren't required to spend your entire session going over these things. You aren't expected to act as their personal language teacher, so keep that in mind. However, you still should personalize your session to your tutees and their goals. WLL doesn't require a certain format for sessions, so please discuss with your group members what would be most beneficial in terms of the structure of your meetings. Tutoring can also be more than just conversational practice. Sometimes it's nice to do more than just talk, so feel free to look at the tutor handbook and the different tutoring ideas we've compiled. We also have a lesson planning guide if you're interested. It is also important that you come to your sessions with enthusiasm and are ready to participate. It's no fun to work with someone who doesn't seem like they want to be there, so please try and maintain some sort of excitement for what you're doing. Finally, we recommend that you understand the limits to your language knowledge. Regardless of whether you're fluent or a proficient speaker of the language you're tutoring, you are not expected to know everything. It's totally fine to look things up and come back to certain topics the next week you meet. Here's a list of things we suggest you doing with your group during your first meeting. First, prepare a list of questions for your group members, going over names, levels of proficiency, goals for the semester, and when members would be available to meet if the time for the matching email isn't the most convenient. You should also talk to your group members about how they would like to be corrected, if they'd like to be corrected. Also, ask your tutees if there are any accommodations they need to attend to your group's tutoring sessions. It's also important to find out if there are any topics that your group members would prefer not discussing. We recommend staying away from particularly controversial topics, especially in your first couple of sessions. That being said, many tutees are fine with and even interested in these topics, so they don't need to be completely avoided if your group members want to discuss them. Finally, please go over the handbooks that your group is all aware of GET's policies. At the end, please fill out the Google Form contracts to show that you've met with your group members and are aware of our policies. In our program, we have tutors who make very strict lesson plans for each session, and we also have tutors who simply come and have a conversation with their tutees. How you run your sessions should be dependent on your tutees' goals and styles of learning, so be sure to discuss with your group how your sessions should be run. Ultimately, it is your tutees' responsibility to plan your sessions out and decide what you are going to work on during your sessions. You aren't taking their classes, and tutees know what they need best, so keep that in mind. Make sure you are communicating and having them set their goals and schedule for the semester so you know how to plan your part. In the end, it's conversational practice, so if tutors want help with grammar or things like that, they can, but it's definitely not required. Here are some examples of tutoring sessions that have been done in the past, so feel free to use these as inspiration if your group is interested in doing something a little different from just sitting at the union and chatting. In case you are looking for more support for your tutoring sessions, we have compiled a list of resources which might be useful for you to look at. These resources are available on our website on the WLL page, so feel free to check them out whenever you want. Tutoring can seem like a very low-stakes environment for tutors as highly proficient speakers of your language, but it might come with unique challenges as the semester progresses. Here are 3 situations which are fairly common in language tutoring and might need to be addressed during a session. In this first situation, your group members might stop speaking in a target language or in general for a variety of reasons. Usually, tutees are frustrated that they aren't picking up on what's being said, or they don't know how to share their thoughts in the language. In this situation, it's totally fine to stop and do something else, giving your group members time to calm down. Later, once things are more comfortable again, you can try coming back to the previous topic, asking them what they were having trouble with, and trying to help them through it. If the topic continues to be an issue, feel free to move on and change the topic. For the next scenario, if a tutee asks you a very specific question that you don't know how to explain, feel free to do some research. We offer language-specific resources that might help, but there's also plenty of information on the internet for you to reference. Whether you're searching together or you're searching for it individually after the session, use this opportunity to increase both you and your tutee's understanding. Finally, although many participants in our program are currently enrolled in language courses, tutors are not required to help with classwork. We encourage groups to discuss questions they might have had from their classes, but please don't complete any assignments for your group members. Hints are fine, but tutors should never complete a student's homework, and we discourage editing entire papers for them. If you want to conduct online tutoring, you can run your sessions through one of these 3 platforms. However, in order to comply with FERPA regulations around the protection of student information, you can only use university-approved platforms such as the ones above. If anyone is interested in extra training in any of these platforms, feel free to reach out to us to set up an individual training session with us. If none of these platforms work for you and your group needs to meet online, let us know what alternative platform you plan on using. Now we're going to discuss our cultural awareness and inclusion practices within your tutoring sessions. World Language Learners is a program that works to connect people from various backgrounds and cultures, so it is important to recognize that there's a large amount of diversity within our tutoring groups. Although this volume of diverse cultures provides a great opportunity for learning, it can also lead to some culture clashes between tutors and tutees. Keeping this in mind, we've included this section to help create a safe and comfortable environment for tutees while tutoring. In general, it's important to meet people where they are and correct your expectations to match the level that your group members are operating at. You can achieve this by listening, observing, and connecting to your tutees during your tutoring sessions. You should also work to make your group members comfortable and get as much out of the experience as possible. This comfortable environment can be created by frequently checking in with your group to assess comprehension, allowing breaks, using inclusive language, and minding personal space when meeting. As we mentioned before, tutoring is an exchange, so we just ask that you try and make sure that your tutees are receiving as much benefit as you are. Finally, if you have any questions about accommodating your group members, feel free to email us. Now we're going to move into cultural awareness. Implicit bias is defined as mental associations based on race, gender, and other social categories that may lead to discrimination without intent or possibly awareness. We specifically want to emphasize the part that states that this form of bias operates unconsciously. So it's not the same as explicit bias, which can be exhibited through overt open discrimination like using racial slurs or refusing service. Even though someone believes that they aren't biased as it goes against their values, chances are they're probably having many implicit biases which are deeply ingrained in their way of thinking. Although implicit biases occur unconsciously and may seem like less of a threat than explicit biases, they can still affect your actions and words, so it's important to recognize them and combat them to make your tutoring sessions more comfortable for all members. First, it's important to note that replacing stereotypes with non-stereotype responses takes practice and is by no means an easy or quick process. Doing this requires seeing each individual as unique from their category by obtaining relevant information regarding who they are as individuals. Our minds tend to fill in missing data with stereotyped information, so getting to know your group members would counteract this process. We also recommend that you increase opportunities for contact by deliberately engaging in authentic relationships with people in different social groups. It's also helpful to perceive variability within social groups since every group contains a variety of traits. Finally, we want to remind you believing that you are unbiased is not beneficial. Everyone is biased in some way, so acting like you aren't can actually lead to more stereotype-based judgments. It's also counterproductive to suppress stereotypes by claiming you're colorblind or genderblind or anything like that. Consciously avoiding thinking about stereotypes can actually create rebound effects, causing an increase in the application of bias. However, if you just accept the proposition that we all have bias without striving to reduce it, stereotyping can increase because we have normalized harmful behavior. Another key part to building cultural awareness is looking out for microaggressions. These are statements, actions, or incidents in which people either intentionally or unintentionally discriminate against people based upon their marginalized group membership. Although these might not seem harmful, they can damage a person's self-esteem and trust in you. Be constantly vigilant in your words and action during this cultural exchange. We've included some examples of microaggressions which might occur during tutoring, including using references and jokes that not all group members are aware of, mispronouncing names, and treating people differently based on their gender. If you witness someone in your group using microaggressions against someone else in your group, there are plenty of ways for you to respond. If you prefer addressing the issue immediately, feel free to interrupt the behavior and call attention to the microaggression. We've outlined some ways that you can do this, but feel free to utilize whatever method is most appropriate for the situation. If you would prefer a less confrontational approach, you can always talk with the person using microaggression after the session. If you feel uncomfortable or believe that this is a pretty major issue, feel free to reach out to us or the senior language coordinator. There is also a possibility that you might be on the receiving end of microaggressions. Again, you can respond in a confrontational or non-confrontational way depending on what you are comfortable with. We've outlined some methods on this slide, but feel free to address it in whatever way you feel is appropriate. Since this is an asynchronous session, we ask that you think about these questions to better understand how to implement cultural awareness. This is our last section of the training. Thank you for hanging in until now. Like most organizations, GUS has a no-tolerance policy for sexual harassment and discrimination. You can find these policies and other GUS policies within the Tutor Handbook. Also, if there were any instances where these policies were violated, please reach out to us. After we have seen that you completed the post-training Google form, we will send you an email matching you with your group members. If you're interested in reviewing these slides or looking at other WLL resources, feel free to check out the World Language Learners website where links to resources are available. After you receive your matching email, reach out to your group members to establish a time to meet. And finally, at your first meeting, make sure to set your goals and your regular meeting time and platform. That meeting is when you should complete the Tutor 2-day contract, and if you need to begin to fill out the weekly log. If you have any questions, feel free to email us at the WLL email. Once you have finished watching this video, make sure you complete the post-training quiz, which is linked to this QR code. The point of this quiz isn't to get 100%, but it's to show us that you've watched this video, checked out the handbook, and understood what gets expressed from you. Feel free to revisit any parts of the end of the video while taking the quiz, or even review parts of the handbook. If you don't have the time to finish the quiz right away, it will be made available on the WLL website under the Tutor Resources section. Please fill out this survey to let us know how we did during this presentation and how we can improve things. And thank you for coming and watching this video, and we hope to see you soon at a World Language Learners social event. Bye, and have a good day.